It was May 23rd, 2003. It was actually Memorial Day weekend. And in our family, we have a huge celebration for my grandparents' birthday. Well, it happened to be a Saturday and I was working my part-time job and I was eager to get off work and head on down there. Well, when I arrived, you could hear the people laughing and talking. People were dancing. You could smell the aroma of the food on the grill. And of course, the DJ was in the background spinning the tunes. Well, my favorite uncle arrived. Now, I have 9 uncles on my mother's side, but this was my favorite uncle, and he arrived with his motorcycle. Of course, all his nieces and nephews wanted a ride, including me. So my turn came and I hopped on the back of the bike. I put my helmet on and we took off riding around town. We would stop and talk to people and say hello. We went back by my grandmother's house, and when we came back by, my mother came out to the side of the road and she said, "You better slow down with my baby on the back of that bike." And I looked at my mother and I said, "Mom, I'm grown. We got this." Well, I must have jinxed myself because this time when we took off, something happened. The bike went one way, I went one way, and my uncle went another. And I was rolling like an uncontrollable basketball. And when I finally came to a stop, I was on my back, looking up, and I thought, I'm about to die. And because we were near my grandparents' house, people started to run to the scene of the accident. And in my head, I had to know that I was alive. And so in order to know that I was alive, I told myself, if you can hear yourself talk, you know you're still alive. So I was talking to everyone around me, and I wanted to remove my helmet as I started to feel like I was suffocating. And they were telling me, no, leave your helmet on. And they were asking me, did your head hit the ground? And I was like, no, of course not. Well, eventually the ambulance came and they rushed me to the emergency room. They were tearing off my clothes. They were running all types of tests. And I had such severe road burn. It tore through muscle. It tore through skin. It tore through tendons. It gave the definition of busted up to the white meat a whole new definition because you could see the bone. And eventually, I remember them bringing the helmet to the hospital, and it was cracked. And they said, "Kennette, you said your head didn't hit the ground, but we wanted to show you something." And I remember eventually I was able to leave the emergency room, and I was wrapped up in all kinds of bandages from head to toe where I looked like a zombie. And as I lay in bed at the house, I cried out, "God, why me? God, why me?" Because in this moment, I reflected and I realized I wasn't able to walk. My dad had to carry me everywhere. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't comb my hair. The basic activities of daily living were gone in an instant, in a second. Talk about a setback. Not to mention, I remember receiving a call from my supervisor. And of course, she did all the formalities of, "Hey, how are you doing? You know, sending me well wishes. Hope you get better soon. When do you think you're coming back to work?" "I don't know." And she says, of course, I was working at a grant-funded government position. And as you know, at grant positions, if you don't use the money, you lose the money. So in a very nice way, she said, "So Kennette, what are your thoughts? What do you think we should do?" Well, being the person I am, I said, "Go ahead, reallocate the money. I'll be fine." And just like that, I was out of a full-time job. So not only have I've lost my ability to walk, comb my hair, brush my teeth, now no job. And as a 20-something-year-old woman, now I'm living with my parents so that they can take care of me. Talk about setback after setback after setback. And during this time, I lost my self-esteem, my self-confidence. I started to wonder, what is my purpose? Why am I even here? All due to one moment in time that equates to a setback. And on this journey, I started to do some self-work. And I remember my mom coming in the room and she said, Kennette, you're just not the same. But I know what's going to make you feel better. If I take you to the mall, you're going to feel better. Now, after much pondering and thinking, I finally told her, sure, I'll go. She says, well, I'm going to give you a bath. I'm going to get you dressed and I'm going to push you in that wheelchair. And so I thought, okay, I can do this. Well, then my 5-year-old niece, she comes bebopping into my room and she says, Aunt Nat, are you going with us? And I kind of mustered up some strength and I said, yes, I am. And she looked me up and down. And she looked me up and down again. And she said, Aunt Nat, I don't want you to go with us. You look ugly. No one wants to look at you. You're going to scare people. And immediately I started crying because what I didn't tell you is that I had given myself all of these labels due to all of the unsightly wounds I had. I thought, who would want to look at me? Who would want to be with me? All negative thoughts that I was having, labels that I was giving myself and attaching to myself, labels that I was allowing a 5-year-old child to give to me and attach to myself. So just when I thought I was making a little bit of progress, I felt another setback coming. And here's the thing, maybe you haven't been in a motorcycle accident or maybe even a motorcycle or a car accident. But how many of you have had an unexpected event happen that, of course, you weren't expecting? A moment in time, a situation, an event that you were not expecting. Maybe it was that love of your life being in a relationship for years and years. And then one day, your partner comes in and says, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a divorce. Maybe it's when you were going to that routine doctor's appointment for just a regular checkup. But when you leave with a diagnosis that you were not expecting, that turned your life upside down. Maybe it's your finances where you were saving for a launch, you were saving for an event, you were saving for that thing. And then you have to file bankruptcy. Maybe it's that job, that career that you've had forever and ever and ever, and you just knew you were going to retire from there. And they walk in your office and they tell you, today's your last day. Thank you for your service. You know, I'm reminded of a quote that says, when life unexpectedly knocks you down, make an unexpected comeback. Now, in that moment when I had my setback, I wasn't sure how on earth I would ever come back. But look at me now. Look at me now. You know what? It took a while to get to that moment where I finally was able to get a job that I loved, and not only to get a job, but become an entrepreneur in the process. It was in this moment where I realized my purpose and I knew that somebody was out there waiting on my gifts and my talents. They're waiting on me. And so when people say, when life unexpectedly knocks you down, there's another side to that story. And you let them know, and you let yourself know that there's an unexpected comeback, to just wait and see, and to remember that you have to go through the process. And so I want to share 2 champion comeback secrets with you. The first one is, you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision to either stay in the place that you're at, no matter how hard it is, or you make a decision to rise above, to become stronger, knowing that you become stronger after a setback. Make a decision. You see, I'm reminded of pre-COVID, my girlfriend and I, we were out shopping and we decided to stop at a convenience store. Her son was with us. And before we get out the car, she tells her son, Mason, we're going to go in the store and you get to choose one thing, but you must be at the register by the time mommy checks out, or else you won't have anything. So he, of course, agrees to the terms and conditions. We get into the store and Mason is running from aisle to aisle. He's picking up cakes and pies and cookies and ice cream and chips, and he's just excited. And so I'm looking at his mom, I'm looking at Mason, I'm looking at his mom, and I look at Mason, and before I realize it, his mother has checked out and she's walking towards Mason. And she grabs him by the hand and she says, Mason, since you couldn't make a decision, you leave with nothing. Since you couldn't make a decision, you leave with nothing. Now, of course, Mason had an all-out tantrum, fall out, drag back to the car because he didn't make a decision. Now, in life, when we have setbacks, it's up to us to make a decision. It's up to us to make a decision on whether we stay in that same place we're at, where oftentimes it's not feeling the best about ourselves, when we're lacking confidence, when we're lacking self-esteem, when we're not sure what our purpose is, that we don't make a decision. And what's really scary about making a decision is not making a decision. And so you can choose to stay in that same place. You can decide if you want to win or lose, or if you're going to win and learn. And I chose to win and learn. But ultimately, you get to decide. Because when you have that setback, oftentimes there's a purpose inside of you. And when those painful things happen is oftentimes when we realize what our purpose really is. And to know that there's someone else out there that's waiting for you, just you. You decide. You decide to overcome it. So the first secret is make a decision. The second thing I will share with you as a secret of a comeback champion is that there is going to be an emotional roller coaster. It's a mental game. But again, you must go through the process. You must allow yourself to feel every single emotion, because as you go through the process, you are learning along the way. You are growing, you are evolving, you are going to come out stronger on the other end. And going on that playing that mental game or going on that mental journey reminds me of being on an emotional roller coaster. How many people like roller coasters? Where I'm at in my life now, I don't necessarily like roller coasters, but there was a moment in my life that I loved roller coasters. I absolutely love roller coasters. And I remember going to amusement parks and looking around with awe at all of the roller coasters, and I couldn't wait to stand in the long lines to get on the roller coaster, knowing that as the coaster went across the tracks, I would hear the sound clickety-clack, clickety-clack. That excitement that builds up as you stand in line, it's finally your turn, you get on the ride, you buckle yourself in, you harness yourself in, and you smile with excitement, and you know that nervous energy is going to build up because you know that there's something ahead of you, waiting for you. There's going to be twists and turns and flips as the coaster goes across the track, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. And there's going to be a moment where that roller coaster slowly inches up the track, clickety-clack, clickety-clack, to that very top peak of the roller coaster, where you're yelling and laughing with excitement. And in a blink of an eye, the roller coaster swoops down the tracks. It feels like it's going to the bottom of the earth, across the tracks, clickety-clack, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. It goes to the point where you're yelling and you're screaming. You may be even cursing, and for me, crying, as it feels like your life is coming to an end. Have you ever felt like you were holding on by a thread, that you had to tie a knot at the end just to hold on because you felt like things were crashing and burning? But the thing about a roller coaster is that I know as it slides across the tracks, clickety-clack, clickety-clack, that it eventually comes back up with that excitement that builds back, and eventually it comes to a rest. I unhook my seatbelt, undo the harness. I'm able to get out and talk about the experience on that roller coaster that I just experienced. And life, my friends, is the same way, where you're on an emotional roller coaster. Let me share something with you. That setback that we have, it often starts with denial. You see, denial is that moment in time after an event happens and you're like, is this really happening? Is it happening to me? Oh, it can't be. You're in shock. You're in awe. Is this really happening? Sometimes you just have to pinch yourself to see if it's real. And when you do, you're like, ouch, yes, this is real. This is really reality. You start asking people around you, what happened? It's going through that denial phase. But then right after denial, you go into that anger phase. You are angry. You are angry with yourself. You are angry with other people. You are angry with the world. Now, when it comes to emotions, one, people don't want to talk about emotions, but on top of that, they want to repress their emotions. They want to push it down as if nothing even happened. And then when it comes back up later on in their life, they want to know, where this come from? It's because you never dealt with the emotions of the setback on the journey that you've been on. But remember, it's a part of the process. I remember I was angry with myself for getting off of work early. I was angry at myself for going to the cookout in my work clothes. I was angry from getting on the motorcycle, for allowing my uncle to take me around town. I was mad at my uncle because I thought I was blaming him, that it was all his fault. I was angry at my mom and my dad because the way they carried me, the way they washed me, the way they brushed my hair, brushed my teeth, it was not the way I wanted it done. I was angry. And when we have these setbacks, we have these emotions. But after anger, we kind of slide to this bargaining phase of, Lord, if you just spare me, Lord, if you just allow me to, Lord, if you just, I will never do X, Y, and Z again. So you start doing this whole bargaining thing as if things are going to get better and as if you can skirt the whole entire process. Let me tell you a secret. It doesn't work that way. And then after that bargaining phase, you go to this sadness, this depression. I was sad, I was depressed, talking about not being able to walk, comb my hair, brush my teeth, didn't have a job, what were my finances doing? I was a 20-something-year-old woman who was once independent, fierce, radically fierce, phenomenally powerful. I felt like I had been stripped of everything and I was at home with my parents. Yeah, I was depressed. I was sad. And I had to realize that I was going through these emotions. But at the end of going through that emotional roller coaster, clickety-clack, clickety-clack, I came to the acceptance phase. The last phase of the emotional roller coaster was acceptance. You know, I can't say I enjoyed the journey, but I finally came to a point of accepting who I was, whose I was, the woman that I was, the woman I was becoming, the woman that I would be. I finally accepted the fact that I was going to have some unsightly wounds. I accepted the fact that, you know what, I may not have anyone now, but I'm going to have someone in the future who's going to love me. He did, who loves me for who I am. I gained more confidence. I gained more clarity. I had the courage to take a step. And that was part of the acceptance phase. But again, you have to go through that denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance to go through the mental game, the mental journey, the emotional roller coaster that we're on. And the thing is, it may feel like a linear progression, but let me tell you, it's not always. So you may be in denial and anger and then go back to denial. You may be at the depression stage and go back to the anger phase. But you'll know when you make it through the journey. It's a mental game, my friends. It's a mental game. And it's okay to be there. But the thing is, you got to go through the process. I'm reminded again that when life unexpectedly knocks you down, make an unexpected comeback. Even when you're not sure what the end is going to be like, where you feel like there's no end in sight, where you're not even going to be able to get to the stage of acceptance, I'm reminded of a quote that says, everything works out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out yet, it's not the end. So remember, every setback is a setup for a comeback. My name is Dr. Kennette Thigpen, also known as Dr. K, founder of Rise Women's Network. Take care.